What's Revolution Show, a show for men and the people who love them, where we discuss how men can find and embrace the revolution within themselves, where people can find and embrace the revolution within themselves. I am your host, Dr. Charles Corprew. What's good, revolutionaries? And always, as we always say, I hope that you are doing well and that you're in community and that you're finding your people and that you're sitting, as my good friend Osaze Murray said, finding your places to sit still before you sprint. And that is what revolution can be. Like when you sit still, I think about that wonderful conversation, sitting still, because it allows us the clarity that we need, that we can hear the universe, we can hear our spirits, we can hear our ancestors talking to us and letting us know the direction that we need to go. We sit in chaos so often, but as the pastor Osaze Murray said, that when you find stillness, you will find your way. And so I'm hoping that you find your way and that you are fulfilling what we think is the most thought-provoking question of your life. What's your revolution? I have been doing this work, and when I say this work, working for and with Black men and boys my entire life. And I don't know if I've ever said that on this show after 6 years, that my revolution has always been about ensuring that Black men and boys have a way to thrive in this country, in this world, educationally, societally, professionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. That's what I've been doing. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey. And so when I say I get to meet some of the luminaries in this space, people who think every day and work every day so that Black boys and Black men are seen as kings. And we're going to talk about that as seen as kings. I wanted to make sure that my revolutionaries got to meet one of the most important figures when it comes to Black men and boys in this country. And so I want to introduce to the What's Your Revolution show my good friend, my dear brother, Chris Chatmon, the CEO of Kingmakers of Oakland. Dear brother, how are you?
I'm blessed, brother. That introduction, just what a blessing to be in shared space. The power of sitting still allows us to tap into that ancestral intelligence, not that artificial intelligence. So just really appreciate as I was listening to you, man. Just a stillness came over me. So I appreciate the opportunity to share my story. I appreciate the opportunity to be in shared conversation with you, but just want to acknowledge the power and the standing still and paying
Yeah.
attention to what our ancestors have provided to us, that it's all within us. So
Yes.
honored to be here and willing and able to follow your lead, brother, and your inquiries. So I'm
I
down.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I appreciate it. Look, I'm gonna go off script because that's just this where the feeling is taking me right now, because I've talked, right. I want my folks to know before we even get into this conversation. Like, I want them to know you, because I think listening to you and hearing a somewhat of your story, because it's a powerful story. I want my revolutionaries to know, who is Chris Chatmon? What's the story behind who you are and how you got to this space in your life?
Oh, Ashe. Definitely by God's grace. Yeah, I am the adopted son of Deloitte Sand
Mhm.
Shaw and Herbert Joseph Chapman. Deloitte Sand Shaw family left Tulsa, Oklahoma in the late 30s, early 40s, came out to Oakland, California. My father, born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana, St. Aug, Royal Purple Knight, class of
There you go, Purple
1949.
Knight, Purple Knights.
Yes, Purple Knight. And may my father rest in peace. Yeah, they adopted me, brother, which really that is that is grounded in why I do what I do, really, is that I've learned to condition myself to love unconditionally as
Mm,
a product of two parents that love me enough to let me go, knowing that two parents would pick me and claim me as their own.
mm,
And that was not defined by blood. That was defined by showing up. And so with that, man, I'm a product of the Bay Area, San
mm,
Francisco, Richmond, Oakland.
mm.
Really had a challenging experience in public schools, what again kind of helped me get a sense, an alignment of my passion and my purpose. Because once I graduated from high school, realized that I wanted to come back and be an extraordinary teacher to make sure that young kings and queens and non-binary royalty that came from similar backgrounds
Mhm.
would have a transformative experience in public school. And I didn't. I had one where corporal punishment was the case. My desk was in a coat closet. I was banned from public school busing. Like
Mm.
all of those crazy things, stories that you hear about, all of that happened. But what supported me really was my community. It was then the
Yeah.
Boys Club, which later became the Boys and
Mm.
Girls Club. It was going to summer camp. It was the YMCA. It was sports where I got to meet folks within our community, not from an academic sense, but were teaching me academic skills.
Mm.
And really, man, they just poured into me this idea of everything is within me, and how do I get right, spirit, mind, body, to take my crown out my pocket and rock it. And so I've
Mm.
been on that journey, brother, trying to align with beautiful people that are interested in learning, people that are interested in serving, and that's really been my journey. Met my best friend and my life partner 30 years ago. I would have been married 27 years come
Mhm.
June. But LaShawn Denise Rute Chapman, who definitely took me from, kind of being, ordinary brother to another journey of extraordinary ness, so to speak, just by having a dope queen and an
Yeah.
accountability partner and someone when I would question myself or lose hope, just kept believing in me. Even at times I lost sight, she didn't lose sight and gave us three amazing young kings, Amari, Khalil, and Jordan, who now are grown and are holding me accountable and all in the
Mm.
movement. So, who I am is the collective beauty, brilliance of the African diaspora. Who I am are products of a king and queen raised in Tulsa, Oakland, New Orleans, California, that loved me unconditionally and always saw the greatness in me.
Yes.
And I'm just
Yes.
carrying that forward, brother.
Man,
That's a little
brother, that
sprinkle
is
of who I am, what I'm doing.
yes. Yes, brother, thank you. Thank you. That is a wonderful synopsis of an amalgamation
Mm,
that is simplified in my opinion by love and community.
Ashe.
That yeah, by love and community. I think and we think about this. Like our paths are similar in nature and very different in otherwise. Two very loving parents, like you said, that said, we're gonna take you, right?
Mm,
Although my parents are my blood parents, still loving parents who said, we're gonna move you out into the world.
mm,
And I think about attachment theory, and what I hear as Dr. Corporal for 1 second is that this strong attachment that folks allow Chris to they love on Chris, but go out in the world and be as great as you need to be because we've got your back. We're
that's
right here
right.
with you, and we've said sometime on the show, Chris, that strong attachment is, well, you've got the little rope to the child has the dinghy and the parents in the boat, and the kid says, you know what, I want to paddle off, but the kid knows it feels safety,
Mm,
it feels something, and then we figure that out in our relationships, and again, love and community, and that's what I think, because when we think about kings and queens, I'm gonna say that again. When we think about kings and queens, to ascend to royalty, it is love and community. The best kings and the best queens are the ones that love and say, I am going to lead our community. I'm going to love on our community. And
that's
folks,
right.
if you go and Google Chris Chapman and understand the work that he has done, you understand that the king, when we say king, this is the depiction of what a king looks like from the time he was a child to now, because he had love and community, and he promotes love and community. So I thank you for that. I thank you for that story. Let me ask this first question, because
Mm-hmm.
king and queen now have been thrown around so much. We hear it all the time, right?
Yeah.
What's good, king? I've got to rock my crown. Lizzo's talking about put your crown on, right? Why is it important for us to recognize, and I'm just going to put it as black men right now, to recognize each other as kings? because I think about there's a wonderful cycling and fashion group called Kings Rule Together, Queens Rule Together. And
Mm,
his name is Karan Swint. It's a wonderful organization. And he came on the show and he talked about this ability for kings to rule together. But my
yes.
question to you is, why do we need to recognize each other as kings?
What comes from our really our ancient beginnings. I am because we are because I am, may the circle be unbroken.
Mm,
Yet the remnants of white supremacy, of structural racism, of being black in this country, we would know not who we are, that we come from greatness.
yes.
And we come from royalty, and royalty not from an egotistical, powerful standpoint,
Mm,
although there are aspects and elements of that, but in the spirit of making sure our community is whole and right.
yes.
We can go through this public school system. We can even rock the crown of doctor, but not who we are and whose we are. So the importance and the power of taking your crown out your pocket and rock it is knowing I'm at my best when my brother is at his best.
Yes.
If
Yes.
my brother is hurting, I am hurting. If my brother needs, I need. So I just say this to say, in the spirit of Ubuntu, in the spirit of our
Mm,
shared value systems that are very contrary to how we're being socialized in this country, and across this, when you think about the impact of colonialism and white supremacy, we've moved away of the value systems of we, family and
mm,
community, to this individualistic corporate, I win by all means necessary at the expense of others. And no, part of the blessing and understanding who and whose you are and taking your crown out your pocket is conditioning yourself to love unconditionally and
yes.
supporting your brother and supporting your
Mhm,
sister. And I'm going to continue to lean in around our non-binary royalty and knowing
yes.
our history and
Yes.
legacy of the domain of even sexuality and energy of masculine and feminine. I'm at my
Mm,
best when I can manage both. And
right.
know when I can tap into my feminine energy as equal to my masculine energy. And it makes me no less of a man, or however I identify. And so on that journey, brother, in the
Love
spirit
that.
of, I'm just on that journey of trying to align with brothers of like mind, of like spirit. I'm at my best when I'm building, learning, growing, laughing, crying, healing,
Mm.
um, yeah, and mobilizing with my brothers throughout the diaspora. And so,
Right. And
yeah, that
that's
would be
and that
my
is how we build that is how we build our kingdoms, and that's how we comport ourselves as kings, as true kings. And
yes,
I love that you strip it of the Eurocentric white supremacist versions of kings ruling over others.
right.
Love and community, and I know that's going to be the theme of what comes out. That's the greatness of this. I begin to extract and distill down what a theme of a conversation is going to be, and I promise you, love and community is going to keep coming up in this conversation today, dear
It
brother.
should.
Yeah, and so thinking about that, I love that, and I love that. But it leads me to this question because this will be the foundation. Chris Chatmon, CEO of Kingmakers of Oakland. What's your revolution?
Wow, revolution of the mind, body, spirit. My revolution right now is dismantling institutions of oppression.
Mm,
My revolution right now is land acquisition, resource acquisition in a way that our young kings can draw the through line throughout the African diaspora. So all of our kings, queens, non-binary royalty that identify with Africanness can take their crowns out their pocket and rock it. My revolution
yeah.
is how do we lift up the stories untold? How do we lift up something other than the typical stories that are portrayed in this country around the possibilities of who and whose we are? So it's a revolution of possibility. It's a revolutionary that love, man, there is no parameters in the spirit of being able to. I'm at my best when my young kings can see me
Mm,
cry or see me
yeah.
vulnerable or see me not knowing, right? That, um, but it is really a revolution of the mind, man. I'm
Mhm.
still going through my own journey of healing, trying to unlearn, having been a product of public schools in this country. Having I didn't get my doctorate, but I got my master's degree, and realizing although that gave me golden tickets and access to what though,
Yeah.
and advocacy
Mm,
for who, and so I leveraged the privilege but I also have to realize, yeah, I'm still relearn or kind of learning new ways of how I need to move in service
Hmm.
of. I've been sharing now, man. I've been on this journey of in the first 50 years of my life, I'm learned how to be an adult. This next 50 is really learning how to be a child, knowing what I now
Wow.
know.
Double tap on
Um,
that. Double tap on that. What does that mean?
it means being free, right? I think the beautiful thing, and this is what I love about my life, of having like intergenerational role models, right? When my best accountability partner is my youngest son.
Mm,
The opportunity of young people, man, we so need each other um, on just so many different ways to be whole. And so this journey of now knowing what I do know and what I have access to as a 55-year-old man, um, yeah, is how to be free, is how to
how to
operate in
be free.
creativity and imagination without judgment,
Mm,
but being free. Yeah, man, I had to get broke, so to speak,
mm,
to then redefine what and literally lean into that freedom. And it was through darkness where I had to let go of what I thought success and what black manhood, all these kind of things that you're told you're supposed to be, but were in contrary to who just some deep aspects of who I am. And so I
mhm.
just say that to say I'm still learning, I'm still growing, but I want to be free, centered in my values and how I move in a way that there are I don't want to have all these constraints and
Mhm.
chains that
Mhm.
limit me from being my truest self. And so that's this next part of my journey. And the blessing is having a life partner, having children, being a part of an organization now where it's so bigger than me. It's actually accelerating my
Yes.
growth, my learning. And so, yeah, that's the fun part of this next part of my journey, man.
I love it because what you just hit on, and it's so interesting, revolutionaries, because as you're listening, how many times do we hear folks come on the show, Joyce Chen, Reggie Hubbard, talk about their freedom? You remember Joyce Chen, Revolutionaries, talked about leaving her job at Meta as the head of production to be free, right? Unshackling the chains of what it meant to be successful, that having the big job or having all the money, if you're not free, as Brother Chapman said, right? What is that? What holds you back? And so to find freedom is to find your place in your purpose.
That's right.
Yeah, to find your place and your purpose. And I love what you said is that learning how to be a child. You're right. We spend most of our lives working to adulthood and all of the things, but then we get to this phase of our life, and what do we want to do? I know what I want to do. I want to play. I want to play as much as possible. I want to, I do. I want to play. I want to revel like I did when I was a child because it is
Yes.
joyful.
Yes. Yes,
You
and we
know?
move away
Yeah.
from that, and you lose
Yeah, we
sight of
do.
that
Yes.
in marriage, in parent,
Mhm.
all these different things. And sometimes you need to get broke. Sometimes you got to be comfortable, and it goes back to how you opened. If you allow yourself and you ritualize being still,
Yes.
and you could pay attention to all of that, yeah, then ideally you can figure out how you navigate and manifest. But I think it
Yes.
took me a minute, brother, in absolute darkness, where I really had to figure out what the rebirth of me was going to be, and realize where I got to 50. And it was this dichotomy of extraordinary success, yet some other areas that I wasn't true to myself,
Mhm.
and how that not only hurt me but people that were close to me. And
Mm,
but
mm.
so leaning into that, not running from it, but learning, through counseling, man, has actually brought aspects of me, of that joy that I had gotten away from, just because
Yes.
I was so, clocking in, working in the system. These systems, man, will have you questioning your own existence the
Mhm.
longer you stay in
Exactly.
them.
Exactly.
So I so I'm taking a learning stance. I'm realizing the mindsets that are necessary for me to experience this next aspect of my life
Mhm.
in the spirit of a child, man. Not acting
Mhm.
childish in the sense, but knowing what I now know, but wanting to have that joy with in the next
E
27 years of marriage and as a
You're
parent and
right.
all these different things. So
No, I love that, and
anyway,
the revolutionaries,
I'm in a good space.
no, you heard him say the revolution is the shifting of a mindset to getting into
Yes.
this place where you can find freedom. I appreciate that. I want to dive down 1 second. It's going to lead us into what is and why is the Kingmakers of Oakland. But I want us to talk because I haven't had this chance to do this, and you're the person to do this. For the longest time, right, the work that I've been doing has been inside of public education for Black boys.
Mhm.
Why? Just why isn't the public school system a place for Black boys to thrive?
Yeah, by design.
Mm,
The history of public school education was never designed for Black, Brown, Indigenous, API, Rasa students. It was never designed that way,
mm,
and it is a very antiquated system structure. The conditions are rooted in white supremacy. Um, Therefore, the culture is toxic. Uh, and this ecosystem, the way we talk about it, privileges the privileged. Those
mm,
folks who identify, associate, and are oriented to Eurocentricity, to whiteness. And if you don't associate or don't identify or have a different modality of learning, then and we still can master that, but we still come out of it not knowing who and whose we are. And so
mhm,
I'm not surprised. And if you look at the data for decades, they're all, the outcomes are always racialized, right? And
mm,
to the point where you can predict based on GPA, based on neighborhood, based on zip code, based on gender, based on race. And so there was that spirit for me for 30 years being an entrepreneur, innovating in these systems,
mhm.
advocating,
Yeah,
agitating. To brother, I did get to that breaking point. And I realized in my rebirth, I'm gonna move from being an entrepreneur to an entrepreneur. And
entrepreneur.
the next part of my journey and evolution was all of that I had been innovating and well intended, yet these systems outlive all extraordinary individuals. And the next part of my journey, in a way, was to become an entrepreneur and to take what I have been doing throughout my life, but now do it in a way that the next generation don't need to ask for no permission, that they
Let's
have
just go
the
take it. Let's just go take it.
8,000 square foot facility, design center that I'm sitting in now. They have a network of schools. They have social capital. They have resource. They're connected throughout the diaspora where they don't have to ask permission, but they can continue to keep the main thing, as opposed to innovating, creating, and then boom, door shut. Innovating, creating, and then funding cut. Innovating, creating, and then the staff changes, and you get start. That no, this next part of my journey, it is about creating a legacy of which the next generation has full access to the content, to the information, to the
Yes.
network, to the resource. Yeah, so we can go farther faster. So that is kind of my evolution. And I don't know what the question was, but
No, no,
that was the
you no, no,
response.
no, no, no. You get you're good. You're good. You are definitely good. I just think about this, having sat in similar spaces as a history teacher, as a history
Mm,
teacher in middle
mm,
school, a psychology teacher in high school, and then my good friend Aaron Spence, when I was a professor at Loyola, said we got some problems here in our home school division because Black boys are actually being suspended at higher rates than almost 3 or 4 times more than their white counterparts. And when we got to high school, I remember doing the math. It was like 4,000 days of suspension. That was only if they had 1 day of suspension. We didn't. I was
mm.
like, one, just if I just looked at the numbers for 1 day, there was like a 4,000 day disparity. Well, there's only 185 days in the school year,
Right.
and you got that much disparity. And so that's why we think about the work that you're doing, and I want folks to understand that you have been able to create something, and I want you to talk about that allows Black boys that started in Oakland, like
That's
you
right.
said, for ways to thrive in a system that has not been designed for them. And like you said, the statistics, the research shows. I mean, I remember sitting and giving a presentation to a school board. I will not say what that school board was. The school board had just spent 2 hours fighting over the number of days that they were going to have, literally calling each other names That's how
Mm,
bad it was, over whether or not it was going to be 184 days or 186 days in the school year. Somewhere. I
mm,
mean, literally, the school board got into a verbal argument with each other. I was next. I got up and spilled the tea. And I say that to spill the tea of what was going on from the standardized tests that were going on in the school division. And when it came to the disparities for black boys in the school division, it took me 20 minutes to give the presentation.
mm-hmm,
There was not one question,
mm.
not one. Thank you, Dr. Corporal. We appreciate the information. And they moved on. And I was like, wait a minute. You just spent 2 hours fighting over 2 days, and you have a huge disparity in test scores with a segment of your population, and you don't want to talk about it? That's problematic. That's
That's
real
right.
problematic.
That's right.
So,
Now,
what I want you to do, Brother Chapman, is talk about the relevance and necessity of the Kingmakers of Oakland. Why is this program? Talk about what it is, and why is it a necessity all across this country?
that's right. Right on. And appreciate the opportunity to shine a light on how we center Black boys while serving all students.
Mm,
As you said, the work was born out of the work I started in Oakland Unified School District in 2010. And simply put, what we do is work with districts across the country around redesigning the system, the structure, the conditioning culture that improves educational life outcomes of Black boys from preschool through PhD. And our
mm,
way to do that in centering Black boys, first, we start off in what we call this phase zero. So it's a whole set of processes. We work with districts to identify a multiracial, intergenerational, cross-sectional group of folks. Because what we find is typically the higher up you go in these systems, the further away you are from those children, in particular, that are furthest away from opportunity. And so we believe if you're going to address the needs of those students furthest from opportunity, they got to be the co-designers and co-creators. So we
mm,
co-locate them in the leadership team, board members, community members, kings, parents, classified staff, principals, and central office. They spend the first semester doing a listening campaign. So they
mm,
listen to African-American boys, Black boys from preschool through 12th grade. They also listen to alumni, students that had just recently They do. There's a whole survey, kind of a protocol of just listening to what the lived experience of those kings are in within the school. They do that. We have a readiness rubric similar to an equity audit. Then that team takes their each. They go use the readiness rubric or the equity audit to assess the efficacy of each and every school within their system. Then they do an audit of best practices within their school or within their district. Because many times the beautiful things that are happening in a school district are foreshadowed by the sort of negative frame and the perpetuation of what's not working versus feeding and fueling what is working. We
right.
posit that people in a community can solve for solutions in their own community. We are not a turnkey model. And the Calvary, as Brother Sean Dove says so
No, my dude.
eloquently, that the Calvary ain't coming to save nobody, that we are the
Exactly.
enchanted people. And so, what we do to help prime people around that is having that multiracial, intergenerational, cross sectional mic team interview Black boys. They look at best practices based on literacy, based on culture, based on attendance, based on graduation rates, based on pedagogy. They glean the research. So, given what their equity issue may be, they just look at, well, what does the research say? And then they begin to put together a set of activities. So we use a process called liberatory design. So it's a process that through ideation and prototyping and having feedback loops through this multiracial, intergenerational, cross-sectional team, they begin to build out activities around recruiting, training, retaining Black male teachers, around culturally
Mm,
responsive curriculum and pedagogy, around youth voice and leadership, around parent, family, community engagement, around narrative change, and then policy. And so that
mm,
process, they build out what is their LSPI, what is their school site plan, what is their strategic plan, whatever the district calls it. But they build out a plan. And then that team, there's a whole set of activities with that. Basically, are the kind of accountability group that then is just tracking that from a classroom to school wide. That is
Wow.
it at its biggest level, and it is systems redesign work. That what I also posit, this work cannot be done. Undoing structural racism and white supremacy cannot be undone in a 3 to 5 strategic plan. Like this is legacy work, and we
This
need
is
to think
legacy
about
work.
the bands of 10 years, right? Like the group of kings that start in kindergarten, we should have a plan where ideally, even though the people come and go, the plan to ensure that they're able to take their crown out their pocket and rock
Hmm.
it and manifest greatness, there should be a plan from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. Many times what we see from the experience of kindergarten all the way through 12th grade is multiple plans, 3 to 5 different strategic plans,
Mhm.
let alone a revolving door of different people that are coming through. And so what we posit is we write really a 10-year plan with the school
Yes.
district that centers Black boys while serving all students. And it's not about fixing Black boys. They are beautiful, brilliant, and possessing a
Mm.
greatness. Really, the work then that we're doing is around mindsets, adult mindsets. What are the
Mm.
mindsets that we need to um, undo and then carry forward to create the condition and the culture? And that's, I mean, a very broad, heady approach to what we do. And I can go much more granular around each of what we call our drivers, those 6 areas. But at the core, we center Black boys while serving all. We have a process that redesigns the system from within in partnership with the community, that improves educational life outcomes for our young kings. And that's our journey. In some districts, it's Black boys, Black girls. In some districts, Black boys, Black girls, and non-binary youth as
Mm.
well. Kind of varies on district, but our
Right.
general strategy centers Black boys while serving all.
Man, it's a beautiful thing. And I know that work is not easy. I've been entrenched in that work like you my entire life. And the
Mm,
interesting thing is that you have pushed past when it was sexy to talk about serving Black boys. Because you remember that period of time, like 2010 to like 2017, when everybody wanted to fund the work. Like, let's, Kellogg wanted to fund the work, and shout out to them, because part of where we are right now is because of the Kellogg Foundation and their
yes,
support of these two leaders right here.
that's
This
right.
podcast would not be where it is if it wasn't for the support of the Kellogg Foundation. But
That's
I
right.
remember saying, Brother Chris, is that the funding was going to dry up, because that's what happens. That's what happens. There's a narrative, and then people begin to throw money at it, all of this money, and when it's not sexy anymore, the money begins to dry up. Because I don't recall the last time I heard a philanthropic organization say we've got a campaign, right, that's going to continue to fund like Black boys. But it was all so. What I love is that you have been able to push past when it was sexy to say this is actually real legacy work
That's
to
right.
ensure that our Black boys, right, our Black boys and the people that love them have what they need to thrive in this world. And that's why it's so important, because when we think about this work, when we think about shifting the lives of the group of us, when we look at the markers of health and education,
Mm,
we've been struggling.
that's right.
We've been struggling. So it's not just like you said, it's not that we can just throw 3 to 5 years or we can just throw money in. It is a systems thing, and it takes leaders like yourself all across this country.
That's right.
Because what I'm tired of seeing is this narrative that Black boys are anything but kings, right? And
Mm,
I know my revolutionaries, like, wait, he's going off today. Yeah, I'm going off a little bit, because this is, you know what I'm saying? Because at the recording of this show, there was a 16-year-old Black boy
mm,
that mistakenly, happened to go to the wrong house to get his brothers
mm.
at the recording of the show, and he was shot. We cannot think of our Black kings as nefarious, as all of these negative terminology or list of words that can define Black boys. As Brother Chris said, we are kings.
That's right.
And that means something. When you can see a Black boy as a king, you look differently. Oh, there's a
That's
king. Instead of saying, let me pull my gun out and shoot him and ask questions later. That's a
Hmm.
problem to me, Chris.
Agreed. And that's what television continues to perpetuate in this country is we're feeding and fueling a very deficit, negative narrative around the Black experience, which is by design. And that's why it's so important. One of the domains of our work is lifting up this a very different narrative that acknowledges we come from greatness, that we are
Mm,
beautiful, brilliant, and possess innate greatness. And so, we have 5 albums. We do movement music, right? We have a short film. We have over 200 pieces of video that we're doing that centers
mm,
Black boys and shows the diversity, the beauty, the power. But and ideally, we would get that into Netflix, into Hulu, and on ABC, NBC. It's not there yet, but come on our website and check it out.
there you go.
But this country really they need different narratives. So
Mm,
you don't have people then that don't even say hello, like literally shot that young king just based on the color of his skin,
mm.
as opposed to opening the door and just saying, "Hey, King, how can I help you?" Right?
Hey, King,
Um,
how can I
we
help?
are.
Think about the mindset. We talked about this, the power of mindset. Hey,
That's
King,
right.
how can I help you? Think about, I'm thinking maybe it's just me when you say that. I might have some nefarious things in my mind, all right? But when you said, hey, King, just what that felt like, the physiological
Mm,
response that my body had when you said, hey, King, how can I help you? My mindset, right? My whole mindset was like, but maybe that's just me. Maybe,
mm,
maybe, maybe that's, but when, hey, King, because when a queen says to me, right,
mm.
good morning, King, what's good with you, King? Oh, oh, okay.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Because
That's
I've been saying, Queen, what's good, Queen?
that's
How are
right.
you?
That's
But
word.
that feeling of I see you, right?
That's
I
right.
Salbona, I
That's right.
see you. You know, and that is a beautiful thing. I am glad that young brother was able to come through that. That is the blessings of our God to come
That's right.
through this. You know, in such a time where it could be something different. It could be some we could be mourning that young brother.
That's right.
Hopefully we have an opportunity to continue to celebrate him. It is a wonderful thing that you're doing. And I want my revolutionaries to understand. Go to kingmakersofoakland.org to see the work that they are doing. This wonderful narrative that this entrepreneur has created that was housed in Oakland Unified School District that is
That's
now a nationalized organization working to bring policy and academic and behavioral change to school divisions all across the country. You know,
that's
we
right.
bring entrepreneurs on here all the time, but we think about that. Like the value prop and the solution is necessary for our young Black boys to thrive. Right. And my
Right.
revolutionaries don't get to hear me talk like this all the time. Chris, you bringing it out of me. You
Come on,
know what I'm
brother. Come
saying?
with it. Come with
You're
it.
bringing it out of me. I want to move the conversation because it's always going to go by fast. We had an interesting conversation in the green room that I want to uplift because I said I brought you on the show to talk about this work, but it also is because of my admiration for who you are as a man, who you are as a king. As you move through this space, you've been married for 27 years, and you talked about this earlier in the show. I want you to talk about the importance of your wife to your ascension to the throne as this king, as this luminary, as this person that we look to lead this movement for Black boys and for people who
Mm.
love them. How important has your wife been in this journey for you?
Well, let me be clear. I would not be the man I am today if it wasn't for LaShawn Denise Route Chapman. Her grace, her foresight, her commitment, her belief, her brilliance and beauty. Um, Man, she's been foundational on so many different levels as a friend, as a partner, as a colleague, as a parent, as a sister, spouse. Yeah, she's been instrumental on so many different
Mhm.
levels and modeled to me aspects that weren't even within or weren't cultivated yet. I'll say that.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, it's rare that you meet. I mean, and she's by her superpower is she is a giver, which in today's society, many times people may see that as not as a superpower, but something that folks may take for granted. And I've grown to not take that for granted,
Yeah.
and to really honor the power and beauty, much in the same way as the transition of my father, and not knowing, well, why are you so nice? Like, you're so humble and so kind. And yeah, and again, this is television, this is corporate hip hop, this is all the toxic things that we get poured into our head of what is Black manhood, what is all this. And yet I had my wife and my father demonstrate something that was actually
Mm.
I was still growing into. And so her ability to see the tomorrow in me, to believe in me, to love me
Mm.
unconditionally, the same way that my father has, and my mother. Yeah, brother. Once I think you realize the words can't even describe the power of
Mm.
that. You learn not to take that for granted. You
Yeah.
learn to
Yes.
cherish and to
Mhm.
and reciprocate and to
Mhm.
do whatever you need to do, because those gifts, those individuals are far and few between.
Yes.
And so I pay homage to my beloved wife, Sister Queen, love her. Yeah, man, she's
I was
dope. She's
sure.
brilliant. Her and her team are in Atlanta, with the National Equity Project, doing
Mhm.
that healing work, doing the work
Right.
that they do. But yeah, there's no way I am who I am without her on so many different levels. So
Mhm.
and I believe that generally speaking, the people that you hang with, the people you associate with, are a reflection of you. And so I tend to be that ordinary brother that just surrounds himself with extraordinary people, man. And
I love that.
and God blessed me with someone that was, was something I on some levels had to grow into and
Mhm.
continue to evolve. So I'm just grateful. I'm trying to continue to stay humble and honor. But she's bad about it. She's badass. She's awesome. And, yeah, man.
I love it.
Give thanks
Yeah.
for my queen. Absolutely.
Yeah. We talk so much on this show about our abilities to self-actualize, all right,
Hmm.
to move to that space of purpose. And you must move through Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You must move through love and belonging to get to that place of self-actualization. And we've talked at
That's
length, and I won't bore our revolutionaries because they're like, oh, he's gonna get on this self-actualization kick. Yeah, just for a second. But
right.
like, if you listen to what Brother Christus said, like, and how we've talked about who he is in the world, you can't get to this space in the world to do purposeful work without being singularly focused on good partnership and having a good partner who will pour into you and you pour back into them, and it is a
That's right.
reciprocal nature. And I think about when if you're trying to move to your purpose, and this is purposeful work that you're doing, what if you had all of the distractions, or allowed all the other distractions in? Where would this movement be?
Hmm.
Where would this movement be if you weren't singularly focused, on your family and your wife? And that is a very interesting thing, because I haven't even asked you this question, is that you have three adult kings,
Young
three
adult, but
adult
adult.
kings, huh? That's
I
that,
said
that's
young
that.
adult, but adult.
Yeah, yeah, young adult,
Yeah.
exactly. What was that like to raise them up, to bring them, to
Mm.
through their development, to for them to see you growing, knowing that you are going to be the model for them? What has that been like for you to be that patriarch of this family? And what would you say to fathers in the similar position that you were in? How do you raise up your children?
Hmm. One of the greatest blessings that can be bestowed upon us is life, and
Mm,
to be given the opportunity to give birth. And we have the easy part, but yet have a partner that gives birth. What a gift, man. I mean, my whole life I've loved other people's children. And when I was given
mm,
the opportunity to give life, being adopted, and never not, the context of blood is thick in the water. And I didn't necessarily ever have that, to then have Amari Malik Chapman, to have Khalil Amani Chapman, and Jordan Caleb Chapman, Wow. What a gift.
Yeah.
Yet I didn't necessarily have the blueprint for being the best father. I brought all what I thought I knew, and, all the things that I think Amari, my firstborn, brilliant, an artist, a creative, yet yeah, man, just challenges of not, things I hadn't necessarily worked through, right? So
Hmm.
the blessing of my third, Mari's 25, Jordan's 18. By the time we got to Jordan, yeah,
You
it was
figured
a
it out.
whole nother level. I figured out some stuff with Mari. We figured out some stuff with Khalil. So Jordan has a whole nother level of kind of freedom
Hmm.
and dominion that we just, kind of this idea of protect, right? Knowing what we know as educators and being a nervous, no matter what background you come from, finance, a black child in America is still a black child on America. They have a
Yes.
target on them. Don't matter private, public, charter, independent, hill, flatland, rural, urban, suburban, you still have a target. And that was always something my wife and I never took for granted. And I think that fear in the spirit of the first, probably overly protected, you need to be able to let your children, fail and experience some of these things where
Hmm.
I think I was probably like, I was the coach of everything. I was, oh, you're coming to YMCA, everything. Like, and on one hand was awesome, but on some other aspects, I was probably doing a little too much, in the spirit of, and you need your children to kind of get out and have different experiences. And so I just
Right.
say this,
Right.
it was just an evolution. What would I say to, aspiring parents? Just time. You can't take back time.
Hmm.
The first day of school, riding a bike, birthday, like be there, even if you may not be in the bed, be present.
Hmm.
Be real. I mean, I think at the end of the day, children need
Be
to
righteous.
know, yeah, like, and I had to dispel Chris Chapman the myth and Chris Chapman the man, and that's a humbling thing. Well, shit, if they always knew me as Chris Chapman the man, that would have been a different thing too. But and the blessing is we still got there. And so I just think the idea though of being them seeing you be human, like watching you fail and how you get up, right? Watching you
Yeah.
cry, watching you
Mm.
work through these different things. I had a false sense of, and some of it was generational, like my, same too. My dad kind of protected me from certain things. Or no, you can't talk about that. Whereas I think be open with your
Hmm.
children,
Yes.
because when
Be
those things
vulnerable.
happen, they'll know how to. It'll be
Yes.
familiar as opposed to, well, they didn't talk about it, so I don't know what to do. So I just think, time, you can't take back time, being present, being vulnerable, and just showing up, with for them, with them, advocating along the way. And the greatest gift now, man, just to have friends. Normally your adult children ain't never trying to come home. Shit, my sons are always coming home, and and it's awesome, and we love it. And going to
Yeah.
ball
Yeah.
game. I mean, I'm just like, what a gift that
Yes.
through that journey we actually have. We love each other, and we have good, friendships. I mean, just really good friendships. So, but it was a journey, Brother Charles. On that, I can't say that it was all perfect, or just
No,
because I was a
it's
teacher,
never
yeah,
right.
yeah. So those are a few of the little sprinkles I would give as far as the aspiring parents or folks. Anything I could say is, giving time, being present, and being who you are, and listening.
Yeah, that's the wonderful piece. That's the wonderful piece of this is that time,
Mm,
and both of us, as we talked in the green room, both of us lost our fathers last year, and we wish that we had that time back.
that's right.
And yeah, and I love that you talked about the friendship that you have with your sons. That's important. That friendship is, as we say, the good men of Omega say, friendship is essential to the soul. And so, thinking about what that feels like to be friends with your children as they've gotten older. And um, it sounds like, what I heard in the agreement that you and your father, were tremendous friends. And my father and I
Absolutely.
were. My father was my father was my best friend until his last breath, And
Mm,
to love on your children the way that our parents loved on us is a wonderful thing, because I hear folks talk about, sometimes they don't have that. They don't have the relationships with their children where they can say my child is my friend now, that I can love on my child and they understand that this is still a parental child relationship, but that this is blood and this is friendship and this is time. This is the ability to enjoy to see the fruits of things. And
That's right.
my father, as I talk at length, my father was so proud of me getting a PhD, and he wore my graduation beads for a year.
Huh.
And we would play. I'm sure, like your father, we would just play. Or if we think about this conversation, right? We wanted to get back to being childlike. We worked so
Mm,
much to be an adult. And that was the one thing that my father and I did, is that our friendship allowed us to play, and
mm.
was one of the greatest joys of my life, to just go in and laugh and joke with him. And as he got older, I would go in and rub his face, and then I would smack him a little bit, and he would just be like, "Stop," But it was our playfulness, you
That's right.
know. Yeah, and to think that you have years to revel in the friendship with your son. So I can't wait to watch that, to see how it plays out, in pictures all across, to see. I was able to see your sons who are working with the Kingmakers of Oakland as a part of
Yeah,
your revolution. It's now their revolution, and so
that's right.
I know that is a beautiful thing for you. We're gonna end. I want you. Usually we end with a question. I want you to pick a number 1 through 5.
Number one.
Number one. So number one. You've talked at length about who you are. One of our core tenets is revolt and evolve.
Hmm.
What did you have to revolt from and evolve into to be this version of yourself?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the revolt really was I think this dichotomy of the outward me and the inward me
Mhm.
weren't always aligned. Um, there was the consternation. I think that was the period of being broke where I could really merge those two.
Mm.
And it was just my own journey, I think, of separating some things growing up, just given what I, saw, what I thought, until that could not no longer exist. And it
Mm.
really had me give rebirth to no, I can marry that,
Yeah.
and operating in integrity with uh all of me, that those
Mm.
people that love me would continue to love me, and
Wow.
those people who
Yes.
didn't, they like, it's all love. It didn't matter. So I just say, the revolt was kind of this, the myth. And
Mhm.
no, I'm not the. I'm the man, and no, I'm human, and I make mistakes. And I think in being human and real with that, my family actually drew even closer in ways
Mm.
I had to do my own work, and I've been living really it's man, just a whole nother aspect of passion, purpose, and profession. I've been able to manifest even stuff that I thought, okay, my first 50 was good, in that, yet it can be so much better. And so, the revolt is being free of that and being me 24/7, 365, and engaging those folks when I am vulnerable or don't know, help me, as opposed to,
Yeah.
ego not letting people know what that is, and going outside to maybe figure that out when, you got to stay with that group. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
No,
that's been
it
my
does, brother.
evolution.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does. It does. When you think about, like you said, what I heard was the revolting was from this, like you said, this dichotomy, right? This dichotomy of who you thought, the myth of the man that you were, and you had to evolve into, I can accept, I can accept this one version of myself
that's
that is an
right.
amalgamation of all those things. I
That's
don't,
right.
I don't have to be these two versions of myself.
Yeah,
I can just be and love myself.
that's right.
That's the evolution in this, right? Revolting
Mhm.
from two, amalgamating into one. And that's a beautiful
That's
thing.
it.
Yeah, I had to, for me, it's interesting because I walked around with a dichotomy as well. His name was Corpru. So there was Charles and Corpru. And
Mhm.
similarly had to do the same thing, figure out the pieces of each of them that I could then say, this is who I wanted to be.
Mhm.
I could accept this version of myself. And like you said, one of the things that my good friend Kishon Palmer talks about is being in integrity or out of integrity. I
Mhm.
could be more in of integrity here
That's right.
than I could be outside, outside with those two. And I think that's a wonderful thing. Brother Chris, I appreciate you. I've been looking forward to this interview for a long, long time. As I said at the outset of the show, my admiration for you, it runs deep. We are both Kellogg fellows. We are both Kellogg alumni.
That's
One
right.
of the opportunities that we had from 2014 to 2017 was to be a part of the re-inauguration, we'll say, of the W.K. Kellogg Fellows, one of the most eminent, most prestigious fellowship in the country, in the world.
Yeah.
And to be a part of that and to meet some of the most prolific people from all across the country and being able to sit with Brother Chris and hear his good work, man, it's been a blessing to know and to watch you and see what you're doing. So I only continue to wish you well. Folks, Revolutionaries, go to make sure Kingmakers of Oakland.org to find out about the great work that are doing. You can also Google Chris Chatmon, Chatmon, and find out about all of the revolutionary things that this brother's been doing throughout his lifespan. So thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much and continued success. Looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, no doubt. Revolutionaries, you know that I love you. I love you. I love you. And you know that we want to make sure that you are answering what we think is the most thought-provoking question of your life. And it's a revolution. We'll talk to you soon, everyone. Take care. Peace.